Good morning. Welcome to Centerpiece. This is Evan Yvonne, your host. Oh my gosh, it has been such a minute that I have not recorded Centerpiece. And I'll tell you why. This is quite personal, but I've been in another part of the state visiting my children. I have transitioned out a long divorce process. It has been years that this divorce has been carrying itself out and unraveling by the hand of God. And so my children, because I'm starting over, are living in another part of the state where I was living with my husband and family. Now I'm back in the metropolitan city of Philadelphia. So anyway, I've been up there and just helping out and kind of momming, which has been really nice, which is something that is hard to not mom. I miss momming 24/7, but I'm now in a position where I'm starting over and rebuilding. So it is different for me right now, which is very challenging emotionally and spiritually and physically. But God is with me. God is with my children. And anyway, I haven't been able to record because it's so loud. Like I don't really have, any space to actually record in quiet. So today I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to record because I think that it would be nice to really just lay out a couple of things that have been in my heart and just something that was brought back to my attention as in a dream last night. And this dream was so interesting because it involved just a picture of our generations. And one of the things that I am not a fan of just the new generation, I was let me finish that thought. One thing I'm not a fan of is the dishonor. And when I see dishonoring of parents, when I see dishonoring of elders, adults, I think that there's a way to communicate where it doesn't have to be completely narcissistic and irreverent, and just kind of low key, girl, you talking to me sideways. Like I've always loved the Black mamas because Black mothers, there's not a lot you're going to get away with, and they are so needful. Black mothers are not going to allow you to, first of all, disrespect them. Second of all, watch what you say when I'm not around. Don't be backbiting, because I don't understand a generation of kids that I don't care if I'm a crackhead. I don't care if I am the drunkest drunk that You are to honor me as your mother. And I don't know, unless I'm coming to you, creating issues and problems in your face. If I'm going through a private battle and a private struggle that is just mine, and it might be affecting you because it might be affecting the way that I'm parenting, that still is not the green light for any kind of dishonor or disrespect. It might be to where it's like, oh my gosh, Mom, I need you to change. But let's not get this twisted. Like we need those standards of honor. We need those standards of respect. We need that. And I believe that a lot of it is gone because the adults are so disrespectful. And I believe that a lot of what has happened in America in racist times and just all of that dishonor that began to become the thread of our country, that is alive and kicking in these kids. And not necessarily just, I'm calling them kids, but the people that I saw in my dream were adults. adults that have some sort of just disdain for authority, and they have an affinity towards autonomy, but not the type of autonomy that is that's neutral, that's good, that it's kind of connected to being liberated, and that you are supposed to be a liberated individual. But the type of autonomy to just defy authority is an issue. And I'm not just blaming it on them for not really wanting the authority, because the authorities most of the authorities suck. And they suck because they're not righteous. Like when you are an authority, or when you vie for leadership, or you vie to be in charge, and you go for office and you want to do this, when you get there and you are committed to running it in an unrighteous way with injustice and one-sidedness and imbalanced scales, that but trickles down to the society and the thread of how the society begins to react within that environment. So a lot of things that the society is actually punished for, they're punished for things that the actual authority put in place. And I've always promoted the structure of God is what is perfect, because God sets himself up as a head. He sets up in a family, for example, as a head of a family. He sets that husband, that father, that man as the head of the family, because he needs someone to hold accountable. And what happens is that we have men who don't get on their faces in front of God, who have made God not their authority, which is a complete reflection of the type of men that we have running the country, running the world in different places. I promise you, I follow a lot of world news, and there's only been a couple times where the Lord has said to me, that's a righteous man. Most people running in offices and running the types of, I guess within an order of hierarchy and rank and things of that sort, are not men who literally get on their faces before the Lord. And when you are someone who wants to take reign as an authority or as a leader, you have to do that, or else the result of what we're seeing now, what I saw, is a autonomous led heart, a heart that is saying, no, the authority over me, that those trying to execute authority or rules over me are not worthy of being listened to. And even in a time, in biblical times, where that would be the case, where God would set up a king or set up a ruler over his people that would treat them. And I mean, we could just take Saul, for example. He already told the prophet Samuel, he's like, listen, they're not rejecting you, because Samuel was really over the people, but they wanted a king like the other nations. He said, no, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. This is what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that I'm going to select for them a king, which was Saul. And he's going to pretty much just up in them. He's going to take land from them. He is going to rule as a king that he's going to reflect what they think they want. The grass is greener on the other side. I'm going to let them go ahead and experience what it is to have a man ruling over you. And he obviously wanted there to be a distinction between his people, which did not originally have a king like the other nations. Their reliance was upon God being their king, ruling them from heaven. Now, I understand everybody is not a faith-filled person, but what I'm saying is that if you are in leadership and you are a man or a woman at this point, you need to be on your face, because the residuals of bad leadership and bad reign are not a reflection of God. They're a reflection of man being over man, ruling over man. You are getting what it is that you're putting out. And then most leaders are not accountable. They will not say, oh, you know what? I should not have done that. When I look back hindsight and I made these decisions, I need to now work to undo the work that I did with making those decisions in that climate with that information. And I need to right these wrongs. Because now we have this society. So my dream, first let me start with a movie that I kind of was starting to like. I was watching a movie on Netflix after I got home from church. And I'm like, oh, let me rest and eat, and I'm going to watch a movie. I find like a good movie. You know, I like romantic comedies. I like stuff that makes me laugh. I don't want to watch horror. I don't really want to watch serious stuff. But at any rate, I picked this kind of like heartfelt story that was about a father and his daughter. The daughter decided that she was younger. She wanted to move to another country and begin to build a life. The father, who's concerned, goes and follows her and wants to kind of help her to kind of guide her or whatever. She goes to this whole other country, but her attitude, mindfully, she did lose her mother. So I'm not discounting that you can't go through, angers and things of that sort. But she was just so wanting to do everything on her own. But and that's not the problem. The problem was her willingness and her willingness to be dishonorable to her father, who was showing up with good intentions to help. He might have been meddling. He might have wanted to insert his ideas over hers. But the way that it was written was very much rebellious. And you could tell it was written to kind of empower a girl or empower a woman to do it differently than what her father wants to teach her, which I'm not against. But what I don't agree with is the idea of there being this, I'm going to bring you down to my level, as I don't need an authority over me. And I think that that's where that starts. That's where that whole heart starts, of a child believing that or exerting their power or whatever over a parent. The Bible says to honor your mother and father so that your life may be long. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to die in the earth, but what will happen, and we have seen this is evidence-based, what will happen is the amount of self-identity attacks, the amount of depression, the amount of just despair, and the trouble that comes along with you being someone that's willing to dishonor your mother and your father. And I think that we don't necessarily see it as that, because people are thinking like, oh, you're going to die early. And that could happen. But most times it's not talking about dying early. It's talking about that spiritual death. That is the death of the soul. And that is the death of the mind, the death of the spirit. And I think that is what we have seen. Before the pandemic happened, obviously, everybody fell into like this lonely depression, everything, all of this stuff started coming out. But I believe all of the psychological and mental warfare that has happened before that was a result of that type of attitude. And I'm not saying that a lot of parents weren't responsible, or a lot of adults have basically not been adulting, but it is a complete residual of just the lack of honor for God. All of it is the culmination of everything that I'm saying and that I ever will say on the earth for the amount of time that God gives me to live. I'm starting to look younger, but I'm getting older, which is so weird. So it makes me feel like my eternity of death, like that point of death, is growing farther away from me, and to where literally I'm living in eternal life. But which is a very interesting and crazy thing to say. I understand that and I know it. But the types of issues, problems, grievances, and heartbreaks, heartaches, heart conditions, all of the things that people are going through mentally is a spiritual issue. And so I get from going into that. I go into my dream. I'm in a dream. And I know that a lot of people always say, oh, you could have soulless dreams, or something that you watch could affect your dream. I believe that. But I also understand when a dream is from the Lord. And I actually understand when he's showing me something. I actually understand the prophetic message behind what he's showing me. And I'm also getting answers as to what his solution is to it. So I understand that a dream can start wherever, but irregardless of where it starts, all dreams come from the Lord. He is able to interpret it, even if it is whatever it is considered a soul dream, whatever. I don't care. I'm talking about my dream that I had, and this is real. I'm in a house, and the house belongs to a person that is my elder. The elder has acquired this home, and all of a sudden, I see one of my daughters, my youngest one, who is very reverent, very honorable little girl. She's sitting with her back towards me. She's at a desk, and I think she's doing homework. All of a sudden, I'm, for some reason, just kind of like keeping this house. Now, all of a sudden, the door opens, and these people start coming in. And I'm like, okay, so I recognize one of the people, and I'm like, oh, they're friends of a person that I recognize. The person that I recognize is just kind of like she was disrespectful. I did not receive her in as that. I was just kind of like, just saying hi or whatever. And I'm thinking like these people are walking in and they're not addressing me. So when I'm asking them, I'm saying, hi, how are you? What is your name? Who are you? Like they're walking through and my kids are there. So I'm just kind of like, no, like I need to understand what's going on here. And so at that point, they come in, they're just like, looking at me, ignoring me, and they're kind of all towering over me. And so I'm like, okay, interesting. And I'm still asking like names. Finally, I get angry. The only time that you're really going to see me angry is if it has been, do not mess with my kids. If my kids are around and I feel like there is some sort of threat, I'm turning into a bear, a lion. I don't care how saved I am. I will be saved and not saved. I'm still going to heaven. I don't care. I will cuss you out. I will fight you. Do not mess with my kids. And don't mess with me when it comes to me protecting my kids. Period, point blank. There is nothing to talk about. I don't care at that point. So I get indignant in a dream where I'm just like, listen, y'all better tell me what's going on here. You need to speak. Do not come into this house without speaking. And mind you, it's not my house. It's just the space that I'm in with my kids. I'm occupying it. I'm keeping it for the person. So I'm treating it as my own. All of a sudden, it's just like, then I'm like, everybody get out. Like, just get out of here. Just go, turn back around. You are not welcome. Then I just see all of these other people coming, and everybody is like, they were bringing in a party of people with them. And I'm like, what is happening here? So finally, everybody's kind of outside. I go outside, still not speaking. They're doing something to the yard, like taking it apart or whatever. It was some sort of young person movement. And you can tell it was a protest. There were like different symbolisms within the dream that just showed this nation of just unkept kids. And because my daughter was there as the contrast to what these kids were doing, but she wasn't paying them any attention, which was a good thing. And I could see that she was being set aside. She was being put into this place where it's like, this is not how she's going to turn out. And I think that one of the things that I hate about how our generation turned on our parents and our grandparents in this attempt to seem like victims. I don't like it at all. I don't agree with it at all. Most psychology stuff, all of that research and all of that, to me, it is thumbs down. I don't agree with it. I'm not helping you to indict people. First of all, let's go back to centuries before. These are what we're dealing with now is residuals of slavery. So unless you're trying to dissect that and come and bring families into account for that, families that are still going on in the light, in the iniquity of what their forefathers did, and the kind of hatreds, the kinds of separations, the kinds of hierarchies and power structures and systematic stuff that was placed in, unless y'all need to be examining those people. Everybody else that came in that's brown skin or anything like that, these are residuals. People have learned to cope. People have done what they could mentally, spiritually, but the way that what I don't like, and I will talk about Black people because that's my people. I don't like what Black people did. They got a little bit of education. All of a sudden, they became victims. They became victims of stuff that people were just trying to do. Drugs, no Black person on earth went into another country and said, hey, we need to be crackheads from our neighborhood. Do you think that you could make sure that we get enough crack, heroin, and drugs so that we can all be on them and not be successful? Who did that? So complaining about all of this stuff, no Black person on earth ever went to any country, ever went to any leader, ever went to any president and said, you know what? We want to be considered the community that doesn't do anything. Please make sure that our education does not work for us. Please make sure that we don't get books that other kids get within the country. Please make sure that we're not on even playing fields. Nobody ever said that. Nobody ever did that. So everything that anyone has encouraged you, all of these therapists, oh, come talk. Let us know what's going on with you. So that there could be, again, an scapegoat. And that's what Black people did. I feel like over the last 20 years, that's what Black people have been doing to the Black community. Helping white people make you the scapegoat once again. So that they don't have to take responsibility for what they've done. And it is crazy to me. And I'm not saying that you have to be hell-bent on that. But if you bring the drama to me, it's going to be a mirror. We're going to look at you as well. You're not going to come and start monitoring the way that I have to maneuver in an environment that I did not create. No, you figure out why you have a mindset of creating this kind of environment for people to live in when you don't make your environments like that. The same thing I say let's talk about Gaza. We have Gaza. Now, again, we have leadership that is so disrespectful that you will actually go in, plan a war against a people, a genocide. We will all watch it play out. And then you come with this weird solution of we're going to build up condominiums and residential. Now, if this was a righteous heart, then the righteous heart would have said, you know what? We've done something that is wrong. What we're going to do is we're going to rebuild their city for them. We don't want anything back. What we're going to do is place in them some type of value. That's godly. That's righteous. You going in and making a residential space and condominium space so that you can profit and your children can profit later is unrighteous. And in the Bible, when you find that kind of people among the people who claim to be the people of God, what they would do is wipe out that person and their whole family line, because that is iniquity that they're on, that needs to just be stopped. And that's what I mean, is that you create the people that you then punish for being the people that you created. And that is something that when we see uprising of young people, like I saw in that dream, and it wasn't a drastic dramatization of it. It was very subtle. It was very much just, it was a subtle dishonor, a subtle disrespect, just like what I was watching in the movie. It's subtle. It's subtle. And I think that we can all fall in that. I am not excluded from being, I try to be mindful. You know what? This could be taken as a disrespectful gesture. So I have to be mindful of how I do this. And sometimes even when I'm mindful of how I try to maneuver with honor for people, I'm still in error. So it's not something that I'm saying that I'm not judging it based off of, oh, you know, I do it better than you. No, I'm saying it's hard. And I understand that it's hard, but being hard doesn't mean that you don't need to try or at least get to be able to get better. There's times that I'm subtly still being dishonoring, but I'm working on it because I want to walk in the highest level of what it would be to not have the residual of the dishonor, because I don't want to create sourness or bitterness within people that I have to possibly come in contact with again. Sometimes I've just threw it out the window where I just didn't care. I don't care if I ever see you again. I don't care how you take this. And even that, God, the Lord, the Holy Spirit convicts me. But when you keep doing that, when it's just like, I don't care, I'm just going to do what I want. I want to be in charge. And most of the time, I don't want to be in charge. I want to be in charge of my children. I have been placed as an authority, as a mother over my children. And there are certain people that come into my environment that even when they're younger, I will take accountability and authority over anyone that I feel is younger, more vulnerable, that maybe needs to be protected because their parent isn't there. I'm going to be the parent. I am the village when I'm somewhere and there are younger or more vulnerable, defenseless people. And even if they're defenseless elders, I'm going to take charge. I know those are the only times that I want to take charge. It's only when there doesn't seem to be a leader capable of saying, no, these people need to be defended, not attacked, not buried down more farther into the ditch that someone has dug for them. And that's the kind of heart, that's the kind of stock that I come from, that we don't just allow people to just lay wounds with wounds all over the place, bleeding all over the place, and not able to elevate. Now, the problem with what I saw within the dream and this campaign of youth that were motivated by just, we're not following your traditions or your rules, or we're dismantling those things, thinking that they're protesting something that should be brought to the attention of those in authority, or those that are placed, as authorities or leaders over people. But they're doing it in the wrong way. And why I'm saying that is because obviously I'm a follower of Jesus. He did not, he led a rebellion righteously. And it was a rebellion against the rebellious, but it was also God ordained. It was also him hearing and doing only what the Father said, which made it a holy cause. something that was set aside for that time and that generation and that space. And I implore young people that God does that. He will come to your rescue. He will show you how to righteously carry out what it is that you want to protest or that you have been crying out about. Because I'm not saying that we're not under bad leadership, which is true. Most places are under bad leadership because these leaders do not get on their faces. They don't know how to bow to a power that is higher. And they're teaching everyone else to be the same way. But the only difference is that they have the power to punish it. So I'm deeply disturbed by just the reality. And then the dream dissolved into another dream, and there were these African girls, youth, that were just out of control. They had the yeast. I cut off that yeast in the name of Jesus. It was yeast from the culture. It was a yeast, and it had infiltrated into other countries where there had once been honor for the elders and the traditions. And now this defiance that is ungodly. It is the mark of people that are not in God's favor, not in God's honor. And what was sick about it, when it matriculated into the African girls. The African girls were using this freedom illegally. And they had no plans of stopping because they were able to earn the amount of money needed, in a sense, to be autonomous of what the constructs or the confines or the boundaries of life. That they no longer had a need for not just God, but they didn't even have a need for their elders. And let it not be so. That is this yeast that has been introduced in these generations, probably over the last 5 or 6, maybe 7 generations, this yeast has to be demolished. Period. There's no time to put our feet up as adults. I consider myself an elder, even though I look like a teenager. God has given me great wisdom, which I more and more understand. And after that dream, I realized, no, not on my watch. I will be a watchman on this wall. I will be a watchman on this wall. I will be a watchman on this wall. And you will not defeat me. Period. There is no taking me down. I will take you down in the spirit. Period, point blank. Not so. Not on my watch. Period. So, and it's so ironic because as I'm walking home from church last night, I'm like, Lord, it's this time. I'm done with, so I've done all of this. I'm ready for this newness. And when I tell you, I go to sleep and wake up and he gave me the new. He's like, okay, you ready? Let's go. I'm so ready. I'm so ready. Mammon will not beat me, period. It is a no-brainer. You lose, you are a defeated foe. Mammon, I'm going to explain how it's connected, but not for this episode because I've gone way over the time that I wanted to do this. But just know, Auntie Evan, she's on a mission. She's about to get the job done. Total transformation. And I mean clean out, wipe out, clean, deep clean, get the Lysol and the bleach and the power wash the outside of the house. No, not on my watch. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I can't wait to record again. I'm happy to be in a quiet space. I miss my kids, but Centerpiece is my baby as well, so I get some time to work on her. All right, thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.